Hi, it's me again. We got another question for Ask a Scientist. And by the way, just to remind you, Ask a Scientist is brought to you by the nice people at exoticnv.com. They are they're an online adult toy store. If you're over 18, go over there and get whatever you want. Um, Patrick sent us in a question which is deceptively simply phrased and very complicated to answer. So we're going to go ahead and just tear right into it. Does tepid water or hot water freeze faster? And the answer, as non intuitive as it seems, with all things being equal and under the right conditions, hot water does freeze faster. And this is going to play in on something called I'm sorry, let me get this pronounced properly. The Impimba effect. The Impimba effect is actually something which was rediscovered. It was initially noted in 300 BC. And that was someone saying that water that had been heated actually cools faster. And we come up with our big brains and say, oh no, we've got germ theory. We can explain that. There were microbes in the water that were killed with the sunlight, and then when you freeze it, they're not swimming anymore. So it cools and freezes faster that way. Uh, and then in 1969, a high school student, Tanzanian high school student, uh, pretty much proved that that's not the case. That there's something going on. Now, as to what's going on, that's a little bit of a matter of conjecture. There's no single answer out there right now. A lot of people, have answers that they're willing to bet their left arm on, but in lab situations, it's looking to be a combination of things. Now, this is going to pertain mostly to is it possible, not is it a good idea, and I'll double back to that in just a moment or two. What you're looking at, there are a couple of stages involved with this. One is evaporation. The process of evaporation cools water slightly. And if you've got hot water in a low temperature environment, it's going to have some evaporation. Um, you have the direct cooling effect. You also have the effect of losing mass through the water vapor because the entire mass is supposedly water. You're also going to have a couple of other factors there, including the uh, the dissolved gases within the water. I'm assuming we're talking about tap water here, or filtered tap water, or whatever. Uh, Even if it's distilled water, there's going to be some impurities there. And with those impurities, not the least of which would be fluoride or nitrogen that it just gets from the air. These gases will actually affect the conductivity of the water in terms of temperature. Um, and then you've got convection. Convection is the circulation of air over the surface of water in this particular instance. So if we put all these together, does hot water freeze faster? The answer does appear to be yes under certain circumstances. Now, if these certain circumstances are an ice factory or an industrial facility, which is made for the purpose of making ice, yes, it does freeze faster. In terms of your ice box at home, it may freeze faster, but the difference that you're looking at is literally in the seconds, maybe minute, minute and a half. There's no real standardology to that because there's so much variance on water type and the ice trays and even the freezers themselves. But the effects that you're looking at that are kicking into play when you put hot water into an ice tray and put it in is not only are you trying to cool down uh, the ice by putting it in the freezer actually tries harder a little bit too. Convection kicks into play when the fans on the freezer begin to distribute the cold air. It's automatically going to cut on because the temperature inside the box is now going to read higher on the thermostat because it has warm water in there. Second stage is the dissolved gases. The dissolved gases, well, a lot of them are going to be released when the water starts heating up. And then you've got evaporation, by the time it starts getting close to freezing, it will have lost some of its mass, so it'll actually freeze a little bit faster. So you'll come out with smaller ice cubes, um, a freezer that's more likely to have more frost in it, and a higher energy bill because your refrigerator is actually having to work harder. The one other benefit to doing this is depending on the circumstances in the freezer that you're using and how hot the water's been before, you could be seeing super cooling, which is it actually cooling at a temperature above freezing. And that's getting more into other things, but that's not going to happen in most circumstances. The other benefit would be a clearer ice cube, um, mainly because there are less imperfections in the water. It's not going to look as frosty in the middle. It's going to be more clear. Um, that's a lot of not really big benefits for using more energy and having to defrost your fridge a little bit more often. So logically, as counterintuitive as it seems, hot water can freeze faster than cold water. Does that give you a benefit in your ice tray? The answer on that end is going to be not really, because it's not going to be that noticeable. Um, so I hope that answered your question, and if it didn't, just go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to readdress that, or just give me a call. I'm your father, after all. All right. And again, this was brought to you by exoticenvy.com. Go over there, get your freak on. I think they have ice play stuff, but I just don't feel like tying it in right now. All right. Be good to each other.